Welcome everyone to today's quick live stream. In the previous videos you've seen me here with this amazing viewer donation, Pine64 Pine phone, and our work with cross-compiling stuff. Highly appreciated. Thanks again. Totally amazing and certainly very valuable for us for testing more ARM 64 related T2 cross-compilation and open source work and stuff and so on. However, there were some comments in the chat and also later below the video here regarding performance make it unusable and Mozilla. Well, so this is not my, right? So this is reading comments, as you can see. Mozilla released native Windows 10 binaries, also yeah, not Windows 10. I only wanted to correct here some things and give you some notes on performance. So anonymous people write there, generic version of Firefox you have cross-compiled will eat memory and drain battery. So a lot of comments in audience, certainly not only with my videos, but all over the internet, often very misleading, often quite false and not true. So there are many things wrong with this. And unfortunately, there was another comment, and I also with the SJ Octane bunker saga there, I really hate, the one thing I hate most if people write ugly comments and then, or ugly or untrue or misleading comments and then freaking delete them, right? So either think first, and if you comment, don't freaking delete it, right? Because there were another comment with this, like, yeah, unfortunately it's gone. I didn't delete it, so probably the author did delete it. It's like saying this build would emulate x86 on ARM or something. This is entirely untrue, right? So as I write here, it sounds like I don't understand compiling. Also, sorry if you need to correct stuff. This is native ARM, so right? I don't. So this is also, the internet is full of people. This is also why I do this channel here, to spread some more truth and correcting some narratives and putting some things in perspective. This is C++ code and some C code and potentially some Rust code and some other assembly stuff. So there is nothing x86 with this kind of Mozilla Firefox stuff. This is C++ code that can be compiled to x86, to PowerPC, to Spark, to MIPS and something, and that is the native. This is as optimized code as you can get, and certainly very few people write assembly. Often, pro tip, don't write assembler until you really micro benchmark this, because often just writing assembler doesn't necessarily make it faster, because many people, well, besides the time to debug and write it and not get it, not crash and stuff, and then modern compilers since 20 years generate code that often rivals hand optimized assembly code, and the only place where it is still faster is hand optimized single instruction multiple data code, assembly code for media processing. So yeah, don't, I hope you share, like and subscribe and learn your stuff, because a lot of stuff is a little bit not entirely true. And when we take a look, so let's put this performance into perspective. What is true, however, is that this Pine64 performance is not state of the art. This SOC here, I have the A64 short spec thing here, datasheet. So this also, to put this into perspective, this fine silicon here, and again highly appreciated, is 5 years old, right? So this is here a document from 2015, somewhere of, yeah, copyright 2015. So this SOC is designed and by ARM, probably could Google exactly, but it is a 5-year-old entry level, like I would call all winner. Yeah, all winner. This name already, this name triggers me already. Chinese naming of, hey, win it all with some cheap entry level sockets, like. Can't make this stuff up. So this is, well, they write here target high performance tablets, like, yeah, no, this is no name-ish of all winner. It's, no. Anyway, generic ARM Cortex A53 power efficient ARM v8 architecture, and it's showing, right? So this is, if we compare this, I just grabbed here, I could benchmark it myself, but the results would be similar, and I honestly run out of time for combining stuff. Yes, it's a little bit comparing apples with oranges. Get your joke, right? But this is, of course, a difference with big mega corporations like Apple purchasing PA semi of previous power efficient stuff, and further developing this for a decade. And it is showing, of course, although maybe if fair, this is apples to oranges, a more fair comparison would be iPhone from probably 5 years ago. Which iPhone would this be? iPhone, well, at least approximately, which was the first? Anyway, theoretically we could maybe check this in a second. But yeah, of course you get, but also price. You pay like a tenth, because a freaking state-of-the-art iPhone starts at 1,000 whatever something, so you pay a tenth, and honestly, yes, you get a tenth of the performance, right? And the open hackability. And for me, this is again amazing donation, highly appreciated. I will continue to make good use out of this. And this Firefox cross-compare patches are already in T2. Next we will tackle Rust and Cargo, which will be amazing fun. But yeah, as you see, a single core, probably, so this is 13 times faster, right? Certainly also a testament to what Apple is doing there, even as like a lot of things, like 90% of stuff I don't like at Apple, and probably more videos coming soon, because my significant other has amazing iPhone issues, software issues, because yeah, software and Apple, they do processors, not even good MacBook hardware, but software certainly not of their expertise anymore. So yeah, 13 times faster, and single core and multi-core nearly over 10 times. And of course, as Marco writes there, Silicon Note, I said this, so right, 5-year-oldish silicon of no-name-ish stuff for $150 or something. And so starting with the frequency, right? So the frequency is over twice as much. The processor has also 2 cores more, and potentially maybe more L2 cache or something. And it shows here in all the benchmarks around 13 times or so faster. And yeah, even if we compare this, so there are also other who make some benchmark, like here some open bench stuff. And when we take a look here, this also, by the way, this table is always a little bit, but so thankfully here are some graphs. Also this graph is like, yeah, also, but here are some good graphs to work with. And again, apples and oranges, and I could benchmark it myself, but the results, first of all, I don't even have all of this stuff. And second of all, the results would be probably similar. But performance-wise, so the performance is for what you pay for and what you get, what you expect, and somewhere close to Raspberry Pi 3, so somewhere between Raspberry Pi 2 and 3, often quite close to a Raspberry Pi 3. But again, even that is comparing this here of this random pick, which was some preset, not mine. But this is also a good comparison, because Intel 5690K, this is a 5 or nearly 6 year old processor. So this comparison is not too bad, although already the previously recommended customer asking price, $243, already more, double than the, nearly double than the whole phone. Old process node, discontinued in 2017 or something. And even this, so yes, 4 cores, but the clock, even here, 1.2 gigahertz, it's a freaking phone, right? 1.2 or 1.1 something to, yeah, three times or so the clock, base clock, nearly 4 times the turbo frequency. Yeah, it's a certain, but yeah, this is desktop again. So what is my take here? This is entry-level ARM stuff, and like Atom-like performance, obviously, and not the latest and greatest silicon. Certainly Amazon and other startups have their extremely epic thread-ripping ARM server performance stuff, but then this server stuff also, like 64, 128 core ARM stuff, also burns some 100 watts or something. So if we take a look here, the Pine64, which is relatively close to, as far as I remember, should probably be relatively close to this Pine phone. Performance-wise, in many things between the Raspberry Pi 3 or close to Raspberry Pi 3. And you also see the difference here, also compared, so Pine64 here compared to Raspberry Pi 0, right? But so NVIDIA Jetson TX, TK stuff, much better performing. But of course, they also, probably this is this Huel single board computer PCB thing that also for sure draws. We can also, this is the best performing is Jetson TX1 developer kit. This most likely, hey, 111 euro, but again, not recommending. NVIDIA for so many obvious reasons, but energy consumption wise, you have draws a little 1 watt of power while idle and 8 to 10 years. So also probably 10 times the watt or something. But just for a shout out of what you could get with higher performance desktop ARM stuff. But even then, even the fastest of reasonable priced, somewhat recent ARM stuff, even that significantly slower usually than a Intel here of NVIDIA Jetson stuff of and this is not even EPIC latest AMD Threadripping Ryzen, but just people say, just putting this in perspective, this browser performance is unusable. Certainly not the greatest. I was hoping for a little bit more, but this is also probably a dedicated video, modern websites, all the frameworks loaded, all the JavaScript done, and then it is also no surprise when you try to run latest and greatest asynchronous JavaScript, HTML5, Canvas and whatnot, and reactive and so on. Dynamic code on a 1.2 gigahertz quad core. It's probably not even multi-threaded JavaScript, I guess, for the most part. So yeah, just putting this a little bit into perspective. The same, even people are being disappointed with ARM performance of Windows Surfaces, or Surface X or whatever that was. So many devices, can't even memorize all the several names of this. Different devices, but even there, people disappointed. Well, there it is true that a lot of browsers were emulating x86 stuff, but this has nothing to do with compiling the freaking open source here with the highest performing GCC compiler of 2020. But and that is the latest and greatest Snapdragon, right? And even that is trailing behind Apple and behind other Intel and AMD Zen architecture. That being said, I have the feeling, as good as Apple's silicon might be, I'm wondering whether Apple will continue with the Apple silicon, that is ARM64, if they will be able to still have a Mac Pro. I somewhat have the feeling maybe they even need to discontinue this, because I don't see, even if Apple could do it, it is something different to have a high performance mobile thing and have a workstation server grade silicon. I'm somewhat skeptical that even Apple has the resources and intent, as much as they've neglected the Mac Pro the last decade, and because it would take them to develop a very dedicated low quantity workstation server kind of SKU of their Apple silicon, and I'm somehow a little bit skeptical. Maybe we just will not have a Mac Pro anymore. But yeah, just putting this a little bit into perspective, leave in the comments below what you think. For me, this is, I'm wondering if users of smartphone class will be the most thrilled with it, because honestly, Firefox is unfortunately not as snappy, especially with X11 build, maybe with some Wayland build for the mobile web browsing experience. With everything I criticize with Apple, they certainly have a pretty snappy Safari WebKit implementation, but certainly this is also testament to all their Windows Server graphical stack performance there. So 10 times slower silicon and certainly way less amazing mobile web browsing code of Mozilla.org, because they do so much with their previous video, so much with their money, but not develop the maybe most performing web browser. We will see. So the next thing for all of you sharing, liking and subscribing and joining here along this fun ride. The next thing, so Firefox old version, very old version, yes, I'm pretty aware of this, but I'm not sure if a latest version of Firefox with Rust and Cargo will run that much snappier, but we will see. I will tackle this sometime soon, maybe in weeks. This will be the next huge project, and as you see, I said this before, maybe not the very best setup to become a YouTube millionaire with streaming this raw work live, but this again, even this might be a tiny little bit on the boring side of just working on cross-compiling Firefox here, which also not this, but one of the many other your XVTs here. So this is now committed, and yeah, I'm pretty much aware that this kind of low-level work of just trial and erroring, and Rust and Cargo will be the same, right? Rust and Cargo will be, for me and for you, a somewhat frustrating experience to find out all the details how to do this, because compiler complexity and all they are hiding away from even skilled developers with Rust up and Cargo and my recurring theme here. But yeah, that's it for that. Leave me in the comments below what you think of mobile Linux browsing experience and ARM performance, but it's certainly not a surprise that even on flagship phones like the Samsung Galaxy and other Samsung Exynos and Qualcomm Snapdragon, even this flagship ARM silicon is lagging behind a bit in compared to Apple's flagship performance, unfortunately. And yeah, it's a little bit, yeah, competition is super good, but even with this, maybe it would be beneficial for the ARM silicon vendors to join forces a little bit. Maybe some Samsung, Qualcomm join high performance ARM core or something, because yeah, we have so many different cores and they're all not the highest performant as some Apple silicon, unfortunately, which maybe that would be a good pro tip for that. So also with a few, by the way, I probably made the mistake of new YouTube dummy here, reading all the comments. I will try to, I said this already so many months ago, I will probably try to, I probably will stop reading them all, you see them anyway. So I will only read either super chats obviously or other noteworthy comments. So Marco writes that, yeah, super old process node, 25 nanometer something, and yeah, Marco writes also what I said, mainline Linux phone. Yeah, this is, as I said, for me, super valuable for me, but you need to, I just wanted to mostly put this into perspective that people are not disappointed and complain due to our videos. They purchased the Pine64 stuff and the performance is, yeah, it's 1.2 gigahertz, 5-year-old ARM silicon stuff, so you get what you pay for. Welcome, Scott. Yeah, for me this is super amazing. So for me it's a very good tool for software development, just as people write in the comments. So highly appreciate it, and I will make good use of it. And for me, testing ARM64 stuff, a good bang for the buck, and yeah, 150 euro phone, right? It's just not flagship territory. And then I just wanted to put this comment into perspective, especially misleading ARM sources that is just entirely misleading of what people write there, and share you some performance numbers. And also I wish big vendors would be more focused on getting like Qualcomm and other Exynos stuff upstream. It's for me really disappointing for those big companies to make millions if not billions with Android phones and not even care enough to have that community decency of sending sorted patches upstream so that their freaking silicon actually works flawlessly with mainstream Linux. This is yeah, the disappointing side of the open source situation, that a lot of big companies only take and not really give much back, which even the small companies like Pine64 do somewhat better. Scott writes, he noticed that a lot of open source projects GPU hardware isolation is not there. So the hardware isolation is there, but also thanks to amazing people who reverse engineered this ARM Lima thing or Mali thing. So there is GPU isolation, just the generic mode setting driver. It might not be ideal, maybe with Wayland or so, the performance would be way more snappier. So, but this is also only thanks to the many handful of dozens of people who put their time and effort into doing right what all the vendors like ARM, Mali and so surrounding stuff do not do. So we have acceleration, even GLX gears and stuff, just that probably the aging and the future is Wayland for a decade already, but not yet truly there. And probably I tried to use Wayland already, it was not the most amazing experience. Maybe with native Wayland and native Wayland Firefox, the performance, especially the graphic scrolling and dragging performance. But this is also a little bit of the Xorg, but yes, the general open source stack that I'm myself a little bit disappointed of, the chaos that is Xorg versus Wayland, and the situation of ever changing and somehow never truly being 100% done and consumer ready. But as usual, leave in the comments below. What you think of the situation, open source hardware, software, ARM, and but I also said, I made a live stream quite a while ago, 6 months or something, regarding ARM, Windows, thin and light stuff, which might also not be the best choice for a lot of consumers regarding x86 binary dominance, especially on Windows, and then having to live with emulated, I don't know, Skype or GoToMeeting and Zoom and whatnot, if they not necessarily have an ARM binary. Scott Deegan is stunned that those companies don't publish specs for the GPU silicon. What's the harm really giving away secret source? Yeah, I totally agree, and this is also, I post this often on forums and stuff like NVIDIA. I like, people already get mad with me, always pointing the same, like, yeah, but NVIDIA specification, and people always fighting there with me like, yeah, it's NVIDIA's right and they have amazing Linux drivers, which I totally disagree with. If it's not open source, then it's not a Linux driver. And the only thing I totally agree, and I would also, I said this so often, and my recurring theme here, vote with your wallet, buy open source and open hardware friendly companies. And don't get me wrong, I don't even expect NVIDIA to publish their source and write an open source driver. They should have simply, like Intel and AMD and all the many other like Fiber Channel and whatnot, SCSI, IDE and other graphic companies like ATI in the past and Matrox once upon a time, publish the specification. And I don't even expect them to write drivers. Usually their drivers are just ported Windows sources that stink and are not the best and are rather buggy and not amazing with binary only and API shim layers and stuff, and like the NVIDIA one. And totally, the open source drivers are usually better anyway, and all we ask, like all the other, not only me, but from Linus Torvalds to all the other, give us a freaking specification so that we can write a freaking driver ourselves. That is all we are asking for. Also, bugs and regressions, right? You never know what is looking inside your hardware there and what they work around it and what strange tricks they play. Certainly for a total, especially security, right? I would in general not recommend running binary only, like huge NVIDIA drivers in a top secret environment, but with there were even certainly already security vulnerabilities in there. The only thing to come to an end, the only thing they are fearing, the only thing they might lose is patent lawsuits, because maybe their biggest fear is being sued by other companies. Like if ARM Mali stuff publishes stuff that they maybe they even know that they're violating patents, and that is also a recurring theme here, totally against software patents. It's patenting mathematic algorithms, and in my opinion should not be patentable, like A equals B plus C or whatever, graphic 3D matrix multiplication or other forms of mathematic algorithms. That is the layout of logic gates to form functions of fast 3D processing of all the functions. So in general, patents is like, yeah, and this is also what we get then. And so maybe this is the biggest fear, this is the biggest point that I personally can imagine, but there, yeah, that's also why probably a lot of people are not the biggest fan of software patents. But yeah, people in the audience, so the slang or so. NVIDIA is a single-verse company. I think all of you know where I'm going with this particularly quote. Yeah, thanks for confirming this. Totally agree. And as it also makes me sad to see so many open source forums of telling long-term open source veterans I should F off and leave them alone with their NVIDIA binary-only driver. This is not what we created open source for decades, to be locked into binary-only drivers, because it hinders innovation. You can't freely innovate the Linux kernel. All big changes can break the bloody NVIDIA driver, which obviously they constantly do. Or even worse, if you want to move on to Redux, or as a previous video, operating system written in Rust or Haiku or Dragonfly BSD and all the other, or our own fun upcoming microkernel, don't even have the freaking NVIDIA binary driver, and I certainly don't want this. So hindering innovation left and right, and yeah, not recommended. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I need to catch up with some other stuff. I hope to see you next time for other fun videos to come, and looking forward to your comments regarding the situation with ARM support or open source graphics and ARM performance on Linux and other Windows-based or Chromebooks and whatnot. So yeah, see you next time.